All right, Cincinnati Bengals. Bye week, obviously. They play on Sunday, 1 o'clock, Heinz Field, Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll look at more of the division here in a second because, one thing that I was, proud of myself for not doing with the Reds is you had so many people in the fan base that said, it's done. They're done. They're cooked. Stick a fork in them. And with the Reds, I remained patient. I said, I'm not ready to go out there and do that even after the series in Oakland or wherever they were playing the Athletics. And it felt like that was kind of it for this Reds team. I said, you know what? I mean, why we've been in it this long. Why are we bailing now? And obviously they got hot at the end. The Mets collapsed, and they were able to get in. Didn't do the same for the Cincinnati Bengals. I wrote them off after the game against the Bears. I said, that's it. You're 3-6, and you're cooked. I hope I can sit here in this very chair and kind of backpedal a little bit in the coming weeks and say, we still might have a chance here as it relates to what's transpiring in the AFC North. So we'll spend some time talking about the North here in a second, but just kind of looking ahead. And I mentioned this at the top of the show. Paul Dehner Jr. of The Athletic does a phenomenal job. Hopefully can have Paul on the show here shortly. He kind of had a piece that went out, kind of a mailbag type piece. That went out for The Athletic last week, and he was just kind of answering questions on, what Cincinnati should do as it relates to the offseason. Of course, there were fans, sending in questions about selling the team, and he was like, yep, ain't going to happen. That's not something you're going to see. It's still going to be the Brown family, and they're still going to be doing this for a long time, and we'll see ultimately if they can get things fixed. But, I think that, the thumbnail on this live show, it was called Strip It Down. And when I say strip it down, I'm looking at the defensive side of the ball, right? I'm not looking at the offensive side of the ball. And there's some people that would come on here and say you need to strip down everything, right? Reed on Off the Bench was talking about the Joe Burrow trade rumors, right? And to Reed's credit, right, he didn't go on here and say that Cincinnati Bengals should trade Joe Burrow. He said that in the past. Maybe we'll give him a pass for that. But it's just that there will be noise. And he's right. There will be noise about it because, if you're on a team like the Cincinnati Bengals and you look at their schedule and you could sit there and say, they could win any of these games, but would it surprise you if they didn't win a single game the rest of the way? No, it wouldn't. I said it Off the Bench. There is a 0% chance the Bengals trade Joe Burrow this offseason. 0, right? And there's not many guarantees in life. That's one of them. Bengals aren't trading Joe Burrow. But there will be noise, right? There will be noise, especially if when they talk to Joe at the end of the year, if he kind of, isn't fully committed to saying, I'm going to be here, we're going to get this fixed. They picked me number one. I've got a job to do. We haven't done the job. We're staying here and we're getting it done. If he doesn't come out and say that, there will be people that continue to speculate. We're not going to do that here. Maybe we'll talk about it. Bengals aren't moving Joe Burrow. So offensively, I don't think there's anything to move off of. We'll talk about the offensive line in a second. But let's start with the defensive side of the football. You cannot trade Trey Hendrickson. You can't do it, right? You take your comp pick, whatever that is. We've talked about it a little bit at the show. I'm going to be honest, I don't know exactly when you're getting your comp pick for Trey Hendrickson, but do not tag him. Do not do that again, right? Because I think Trey Hendrickson's mindset, if he were to be tagged, would be a little bit different this time around, right? Because then he looks at it and goes, well, I got $30 million this year. What's the tag? 35? That's like a 2-year, $65 million. Basically, he gets the contract that he'd been moaning about for so long, and it would just be, with the tag, right? So, that's what happens when you tag a player again. The number just keeps going up, especially at that edge rusher position. And let's be very clear here defensively. The Bengals are not just, they've had Trey Hendrickson. I understand he's been hurt, but it's not like, we add Trey Hendrickson to this defense and they'll be fine. Like, no, absolutely not. Right? There's one guy that maybe is a build-around type of guy, DJ Turner. But beyond that, that is it, right? There's no, they've got, a stable, group of guys that we can trust, and let's just keep this pass rusher around for another year, and that'll put us in a chance where we can win a world championship. You're not close enough on the defensive side of the ball. So that's thing number one, right? And we've had people here. Craig Salem believes that they're probably going to do it. Look, it wouldn't shock me if they did, but I just want to be clear. That would be a tremendous mistake if they tag Trey Hendrickson here this offseason. And I think another question that you need to have here is, what do you do with DJ Turner? And by that, I mean, do you extend him this offseason? I think that's something that the Cincinnati Bengals need to consider. Am I all in on DJ Turner? No, I'm not. But I'm more all in on him than any other guy on the defensive side on this roster here at this point. And if he balls out next year and you don't give him an extension, now it's going to be more expensive. And the Bengals already made that same mistake with Jamar Chase. They've made that mistake really countless times before, but I think it would probably be a good idea for Cincinnati to try to get out in front of this and say, you know what, we're going to pay DJ Turner, we're going to extend him this offseason, and that's going to be our guy that we build around on the defensive side of the ball. It's a great point that Paul made in his article for The Athletic. I think Cincinnati needs to consider doing that. Again, I'm not all in on DJ Turner. He needs to show a little bit more consistency. But you've got to be all in on somebody, right? I mean, there has to be somebody on this team, on this defense, that you can sit there and say, all right, we can count on him at least to some degree going forward. I think it would be financially a smart, wise decision for Cincinnati to try to get out ahead of this with DJ and say, you know what, we're going to give him an extension this offseason. That would be a move. That's a very straightforward move to make, and I think it would be the right move for Cincinnati. I think there's definitely some risk to it, obviously. It's a guy that's been benched a couple of times, right? Got beat out for the starting job. A guy in Dax Hill, remember, a couple off seasons ago in training camp, he was moving from safety to corner, and he said, you know what, I'll move over to corner. I'll beat you out, DJ. His former Michigan teammate. That's what he did. But DJ has played really, really well this year, and he showed signs last year, especially leading up to that clavicle injury against the Chargers on Sunday Night Football, of him, playing good football. So that's one thing I would do. I would extend him here at this point. And then you talk about free agency. And, I think it's interesting because, one thing I've always said, I've said it for a long time, and anybody that knows football knows this, you can't build a team, or even a full defense through free agency. You can't do it. It has to be drafting and developing. Now, there can be some patchwork solutions, right, for Cincinnati. And they hit on it as early as 2021. They went to the Super Bowl, and you think about the free agents there on that team. Mike Hilton, what a great person to bring in free agency. He was awesome for the Cincinnati Bengals. He was exactly what they needed. Did he make some mistakes, especially at the end? Did he look a little old, a little washed, couldn't exactly run with the receivers anymore? I understand that. But Mike Hilton's tenure in Cincinnati, it was awesome. And that was a big reason why you were able to go to the Super Bowl. And Von Bell, right? Von Bell was awesome. Von Bell was just awesome, right? And he was, even there before, right? Obviously, he was there for some dark days there as well for Cincinnati. But what a presence he was in the Super Bowl. Larry Ogunjobi, say what you want about him, but he came in and he filled a need the short time he was here in Cincinnati. That's exactly what he did. So if you hit the right guys in free agency, you can provide some stability. Now, if you're the Cincinnati Bengals and you add during free agency, it's not like, well, they're going to be here for 3-4 years. No, you're kind of like, well, they're going to be here for about a year, and then you're hoping that the younger guys can, be better off going forward. But again, I've said it a million times here on this show. You don't need a top 10 defense with this team. You need a defense that is average. We watched this defense this year, historically, hilariously bad, and you go, if you could have just somehow, some way beaten the Jets or beaten the Bears, both games you kind of had won, right? Somehow, some way win one of those games, you're borderline in the driver's seat to win this division with the worst defense that we've ever seen, right? So it's not like you need some top 10 defense. You just need some competence, just some level of competence. And I think this is one of the rare cases where free agency is like, it can put you in a spot defensively where you can go out there and be fine for a year. Again, not going to be top 10. Might not even be top 15. You can make the argument that that doesn't need to happen. You just got to be around that 20 range, man. Around the 20 range. Just can possibly get off the field on third down. Can possibly get a stop. And I think that is what I would do this offseason, is try to get a guy at every level of the defense. Defensive line, I understand you've swung and missed. A lot of you've tried, right? TJ Slayton, what have you done? Certainly haven't picked up the slack from DJ Reader a couple of years ago, right? I would add there. I would add a linebacker, right? And I would add somewhere on the back end there as well in free agency. And maybe you toss around a lot of money at one of those positions. Maybe you do. Every draft pick that you have, I would put towards defense, right? Now, I've been very clear. I think there should be a different guy making those picks, not named Duke Tobin. But I think every single position, you go with defense. And there are some people that say, you're crazy. You need to go get a tackle. If the Bengals take a tackle in the first round, it's just not – it's not the right call. It's not the right call. And I understand this offensive line. I understand Joe Burrow's taking too many hits. I understand that you have nothing if you don't have Joe Burrow and if he's not out there, if he's not protected. I understand. But you cannot afford to not get a productive defensive player early on. If you know what you're doing, which the Bengals clearly don't, there is a guy that you will be able to take, regardless of where you pick in the first round, that can be an NFL player. There will be a guy available. It's just about picking the right guy. And Cincinnati for a long time now has not. So that's kind of where I'm at here with this offensive line. I look at what they've done, and we've brought this up on the show. Remember the beginning of the year, it was, the defense, they actually are better than last year, right? Remember the first 2 weeks against Cleveland and Jacksonville? We're like, yeah, we don't trust this defense. We don't think they're really good, but we think they're better than they are last year. The bigger concern here is the offensive line, right? Now, that obviously a shift as the defense has just completely blown up and seemingly somehow gotten worse each and every week, and the offensive line hasn't really gotten a lot of flack here at this moment. Do I feel great about running it out there in 2026 with OBJ, Dylan Fairchild, Ted Karras, Jalen Rivers, and Amarius Mims? No, I don't feel great about it. But if they can continue to, one, stay healthy and put together a solid stretch here the rest of the way with Joe Flacco, hopefully, or maybe Joe Burrow there as well, then I think you have to sit there and say, you know what? We'll roll with them in 26. Which a couple weeks into the season, I would say you're absolutely crazy if you're suggesting that. But again, I don't think there is not a stone that can be left unturned. You have to do everything you can to put new resources and new players on the defensive side of the football. And if the offensive line continues to hang in there, which they're hanging in there right now, is it great? You look at the PFF grades. I don't know how much I think it can tell you a lot, but it doesn't tell you the full story, right, as it relates to these PFF grades. Some of the guys aren't grading out well, but, I mean, Flacco, you put a quarterback back out there that can make quick decisions and get the ball out of his hands, he's staying on his feet for the most part. Now, obviously, one of the few times he got hit bad, and he hurt up his shoulder. I understand that. But, where I'm at right now, again, we'll reevaluate this at the end of the year, but I'm in a spot right now, if I'm the Bengals, where it's like, well, you know what? Might roll those same 5 guys out there next year and see if they can get a little bit better. You have your questions if Karras can – he started out so bad. Now he's kind of hanging in there. Can you trust him as the center next year? I understand there's questions. Orlando Brown Jr., nobody's been harder on that guy than me. I get it. But, again, all the money that you have, and we know the Bengals aren't going to spend all the money that they have, but all of that needs to go to the defensive side of the football. And all your capital needs to go to the defensive side of the football, right? It's not an offense that needs any tweaks, really, at all, which is crazy that you're sitting here at 3-6 and it's like, yeah, wait, offense is fine. Don't really need to get better there. So that's another decision that needs to be made. And, again, I don't feel great saying that, but I think from an offensive line perspective, they've been good enough in recent weeks. And it's not the craziest thing in the world that you run it back with those same 5 guys. The Orlando Brown Jr. one is kind of the one that makes me a little bit sick, to be honest with you. But you're paying him. He's under contract. What else? We talked about, needing free agents at all levels of your defense, allocating all your resources to the defensive side of the ball, not tagging Trey Hendrickson, right? And Paul mentioned this in his piece. There's several guys where it's like, all right, these guys aren't getting an opportunity. What's going on? Tyson Anderson, right? We said it last year. We've said it again this year. Clearly, Tyson Anderson does not have the trust of the staff at the safety position. He's been great on special teams for a long time, but he can't even get an opportunity out there at safety. And they're just still sticking with Geno Stone, who is hot garbage, right? So I don't know. I don't think it could be any worse at the safety spot. But the coaches, for whatever reason, I guess they think it could be. But you continue to roll Geno Stone out there, even after the restructured deal. It's just like, it can't be any worse. Like, you can't tell me that if you put Tyson Anderson, it would be worse than this. It's historically bad. Like, what's he going to do? Give up points on every drive? Well, that's what you're doing already, right? So we talked about that even last year as well when he couldn't get on the field. I don't know. It's a head scratcher to me, but clearly the coaches have no trust in him as a safety. Dejon Anthony, your 7th-round pick a couple of years ago. He's been on IR, but apparently he could ramp it up and be available here soon. He had opportunities at the beginning of the year. He didn't handle them correctly, is what Paul reports. And, he was a 7th-round pick. You move on. It's that's one of those guys where it's like, well, it's not the end of the world to move off. It's a 7th-round pick. How often is a 7th-round pick going to hit? Not very often, but obviously rarely ever for Cincinnati. But, Dejon Anthony was a 7th-round pick. He can't help this defense. He simply can't. That's just kind of the reality here. Cedric Johnson's a guy that's he took him in the 6th round a couple of years ago from Ole Miss. And I've been like, yes, let's get him out there a little bit more. And you've seen him out there a little bit more there as well. I think that will continue to ramp up. I'm holding on to hope that he could still be kind of a diamond in the rough type guy. You took him in the 6th round. I think he's got more speed than anybody along, your defensive front. Shamar Stewart technically should have a little bit more, but it doesn't appear that he does. So I think the speed element there from Cedric Johnson is something to keep an eye on. You have to play him more, right? And from when he's out there, he's been solid in the few snaps that he's gotten. I would like to see him a lot against Pittsburgh on Sunday. And then you have your 2 third-rounders, McKinley Jackson and Jermaine Burton. Apparently, the off-the-field stuff is still bad, and they don't trust him at all. Complete swing and a miss for him. At the end of the day, it's like, where you're going to try to put him out there and let him go, but then it's like, well, your offense is fine. It's not an issue. You don't need him, right? So, yeah, it stinks that you wasted a 3rd-round pick on him, but it's like, even if he goes out there, how much better is your offense really going to get, right? And there's the questions, obviously, with Yoshi. He responded in a big way last week against Chicago, but, like, it's not really worth it to put him out there, especially after Chuck just ran back a kick for a touchdown. It's going to be hard to take him out of that spot, despite the fact that the whole year up to that point, he was just kind of running out to the 25 and getting walloped. But now he's got another return for a touchdown, so it's like, well, you got to keep him out there. That was really kind of the only role that you had there for Burton. And, your offense is unstoppable right now. So it's like, why switch it up? Especially if, you don't trust him as a staff. And lastly, McKinley Jackson apparently is not detail-oriented enough, and they don't like his attitude. And, he's not executing at a high enough level in practice. And he can't even get out there on the football field. And he's not athletic, right? I mean, he's a nose. Those guys aren't really super athletic anyway. But, again, it's kind of one of those spots. For me, I look at it like, throw him out there. Can it be worse? Kind of like at the safety spot with Geno Stone, right? Like, let's throw McKinley Jackson out there and see what he can do. Shoot, you took him in the 3rd round, and he plays a position of need. At least see what he can do. But it doesn't seem like the Bengals have any aspirations or wants when it comes to doing that. And lastly, the linebacker spot, you're in a tough spot here because it appears as though both guys can't play. You can't bail off them yet. Their attitudes are actually good, right? They're apparently good in the locker room, quality teammates there. Of course, talking about Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter, but you have to bring in a veteran guy, right? And obviously, you just traded away a veteran guy there as well. But regardless of all the changes you make, if you make any this season or this offseason defensively, you got to address that somehow because you can't. We'll see how they do the rest of the way this year. But if you just sit there and say, "Oh yeah, Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight, week 1." It doesn't look close at this point. It does not look close. They're easily confused as well, and I get it. It's Ben Johnson. Nobody really confuses defenses better than him, but they were lost in that game, completely lost, and they're going to continue to get exposed until they can prove to the rest of the league that they know where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. Because not only is it a lack of athleticism and lack of tackling ability, they're in the wrong spot there as well, and that just cannot happen in the National Football League, especially if both of them are doing it. It's one thing if it's like, well, this guy's in the right spot, but this guy's not. Like, maybe you can work with it. Both of these guys, they have no clue what's going on. So that to me is probably the trickiest thing that you got to do here at linebacker because you just took him. Obviously, Demetrius Knight was a 2nd-round pick, Carter a few rounds after that, but that situation at linebacker has to be more stable. It just has to be more stable, and I'm very curious to how they go about doing that. You bring in Oren Burks here, who won a Super Bowl last year with Philly, really just a special teamer, right? Is what he is. He's just kind of a special teamer. And, I don't know what to do at the linebacker spot. To me, that's the toughest. You got to give them a little bit more time, I guess, right? Because they're rookies, but they're just not good. They're not playing well right now. Maybe that can get fixed going forward. But I see not only lack of awareness when it comes to where they're supposed to be, but also a lack of athleticism. And that's not really something that you can fix, right? Maybe you can play a little bit faster if you get a little bit more confidence. But to me, I don't know if that's something that you could fix if you're the Bengals. But that's kind of how I would attack this offseason as things sit on November 10th.